you this evening to the 87th session of Art Matters, organized by the Raza Foundation in collaboration with the India International Center. We started this series in April 2012. It's almost 11 years now, and barring the two years which were devoured by COVID, we have been at it relentlessly. And of late we have started paying a little more attention here to music, because music is an area which has somehow not attracted as much critical attention, as thoughtful attention as it deserves. So, Professor Ashis Nandy is on our Raza chair. Now, it's a chair in which you have to profess nothing. It's
not even sing. Not even sing.
Neither sing or dance or act or speak. We thought, here is a mind and a figure of such stature, and I have watched him listening to many music concerts. So I thought it would be a good idea that we start a sub-series within Art Matters, in which we ask people from different disciplines to come and speak about music. Although we also want Ashita later to speak maybe about poetry or about painting and some of the arts, so that we have some justification in the audit reports of having this chair, him on the chair. And it so happened that we have a double bill in the sense that it is not only Ashishta, we have Amit Chaudhuri, who of course most people know as an internationally renowned writer, one of the best writers Indian English has produced in the recent decades. But he's also a musician who has learned music in the traditional way, more or less traditional way, from a guru and all that. And he had written on music, Making of a Raga, which is a book which came out recently, is a remarkable book about music, his own journey. So we requested him. So first we will have him sing for a while with Vinay Mishra on harmonium and Sagar Gujarati on tabla. That's why. And then we'll try to engage Ashis Nandy to talk about music. This is only to evoke a kind of musical ambiance, if possible, so that the thought about music, which will come later, would have some kind of a immediate location. So there you are.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Ashok, for your introduction and for creating this context, this opportunity. And I look forward to the conversation with Ashishta later. This is going to be very short. I'm going to time myself so that I don't exceed 20 minutes. I'll sing Rag Megh, taking the season as a kind of opportunity and excuse to sing this rag. So I begin Rag Megh in Jhaptar, short exposition of Megh in Jhaptar, and then if there is time I will sing a Teen Tal Bandish also.
After a music recital, talking about music is a bit going off the key, perhaps, but still. I remember once the Marathi poet Vinda Karandikar, who had won the Jnanpith Award and was here, told me in the bar that Bade Ghulam Ali Khan told him, कि देखो मौसीकी तो मूरत जैसी है, कुछ कम तो बहुत कम, कुछ ज्यादा तो बहुत ज्यादा. So it's about music. Music has this great advantage of being about itself. The ultimate freedom in the arts have been given to music. Because the others, there is what about read? What is the poem about? What is the novel about? What is the painting about? What is the dance about? What is the theatre about? But it will be a stupid question to ask, what is the Rag Malkans about? So Rag Malkans is given the opportunity or the freedom to be about itself. So it therefore has been, in a manner of speaking, somewhat inadequate that critical formulations about or thought about music in our own situation have been far and few. Until the 19th century, we have Sangeet Shastras. You know, all kinds of people have Sangeet, Ratnakar, this, that, and the great names. But after that, although the music has undergone so many changes and so many dynamic innovations, etc. But that apart, Ashis da, would you like to say something about how you feel and how you came to music? What brought you to music, if at all?
That's a difficult question to answer. I was first exposed to music really as a child, because my mother sang, my aunt sang, my father sang. I didn't. I didn't.
You're the prosaic one.
I'm the prosaic one. But I would say I've tried, but it didn't come out very well. And secondly, there was a radio at our place, and that was the only musical instrument, really speaking, where I, at the age of 11 or 12, began to listen to this, and I was astounded by some of the classical music. They played film music also, and but the classical music, it fascinated me absolutely. And by classical music, it meant that they would play these 3.5 minute records, you know, or series of them, of Bade Ghulam Ali Khan or Fayaz Khan and so on and so forth. And I was astonished by this is the first time, because I was fond of music. I heard music, but the first time I became aware that music, you don't have to know the meaning, you don't have to know the technology, and you don't have to be worried about what you know about the ragas or not. And this has remained with me till now. I have tried to find many ways of classifying music. Once I gave a lecture at Los Angeles University, UCLA, and there I tried to do this. That, for example, in India, there are many other groups and individuals who sing classical music, but with a very clear limitation. Namely, if you listen to them, in UP, for example, there are a couple of quasi-tribal music groups who, one of my friends went to interview them and came back with some recordings and played them to me, and I was astonished because they were very complex ragas. And he was very impressed that he has found them. But when I was impressed, then he said to me that there is one limitation, that I have made them sing that same music, same raga, more than once. And every time it comes out exactly the same.
Oh.
There is no innovation, no inspiration which can move them. And therefore, after a point, you find them totally predictable. Totally predictable. So that is also a part of music, that what of music you like, what makes you prefer a particular music over what is new. I heard, by the way, I heard him for the first time singing Rag Megh. I don't think I've ever heard you sing Rag Megh. And it was quite a revelation to him. And in the classical music, Indian classical music, that innovation is a very important part of the story. And unless you do that, you are not a true performing artist. And that comes partly from a relationship. This is one musical system which you cannot read out from the scores, like in the West. Yeah, it is one. I remember Prabha Atre, the only musician I thought, because India has about 50 universities, little more than 50 universities now, which gives you degrees in music. You can do your BA, MA, and even get a doctorate in music. And it must have produced a lot of them. So it has produced good musicologists, great music critics. To the best of my knowledge, I thought Prabha Atre was the only exception who having a PhD in music, she could give performance. And then I was deeply disappointed to hear, and deeply also enlightened me. She came here on her 80th birthday in Delhi. And she gave a performance. And before the performance, the organizers gave an introduction. And they mentioned that doctorate degree and so on and so forth, and said that she's a great musician and great performing artist also. And Prabha Atre immediately intervened and said, that is not the right way of putting it. Because I had the doctorate, I knew music, but I didn't have the courage to go to performing art. I found that something is lacking there. And then, at my middle ages, I found out a guru and properly learned for some years and then performed. Now, I would have liked to ask her that what is that difference? Why is it that you cannot convey your musical knowledge except directly? I think I would like to ask him. There is a possibility that he might have to say something on this. That it is not exactly a matter of only knowledge. It is something more. And that's something I have not been able to find. But it is true that even Prabha Atre didn't prove an exception to the rule. The 50 odd universities of India are still waiting to produce one great performing artist. So, what is your thing? Why this personal encounter is crucial?
Well, I'm trying to think what the response to that would be, because you are talking about whether a kind of institutional degree or study of music actually somehow impedes entering the music properly. Is that the so? I mean, the question has to be asked, I suppose. I mean, which subject in the humanities that is being studied in the humanities is sort of opening up that subject to its students, not just music. Is there something going on with the way our institutions work, the way academia works, that maybe is not imaginative enough. But but we are talking, Ashish's question of course covers a huge span of time, and there was a time when academia was certainly more imaginative than it is now. I hope I'm not offending anybody in the audience, but I'm just being honest about my impression. Personal encounter, I think, yeah. It's such a complex question as to why there were so many departures within educated middle class life towards various kinds of experiments with that kind of life. I mean, it's no accident that Gandhi calls his life an experiment. But why that experiment did not include Hindustani classical music is, except in a few cases, like Ravi Shankar and Nikhil Banerjee. So I'm looking at people who had access to not only education, but had those particular aspirations within their family. Like, I think Ravi Shankar's father was a barrister, right? So he would have ideally wanted his son to have had a respectable job, I suppose, given that he was a Bengali, educated Bengali of that particular generation. And yet, something happened in the family so that it not only produced Ravi Shankar, but of course Uday Shankar, some sort of opening up. So this opening up towards poetry and the other arts is well known, but not Ravi Shankar is an aberration as far as the history of Hindustani classical music is concerned. I suppose Nikhil Banerjee is as well. Why that is the case is difficult to say. Hindustani classical music, firstly, it requires a lot of time, like any classical music. I mean, a lot of riyaz and practice. Even that does not guarantee that you'll be satisfied with what you're doing. So the question is, does one want to sort of go away from a literate life, a legible life, into something which is on some level unfathomable and has no guarantees even day to day? So in the sense that, you were talking about, somebody was saying, it's a music without notation. So I was talking about this to somebody who was interviewing me. She's a German-British musician herself. She was interviewing me about music, and one of the things we were discussing was, and she had come to listen to me sing, so she knew, she had a sense of Hindustani classical music. The difference between, say, when we start as Hindustani classical musicians, a rag, and when a pianist sits down to play a complex, let's say, sonata or some other composition. So when you're sitting down to play the sonata, it is a tense moment because it is a very complicated piece of music. You have to pull it off. But it is there in front of you, and that itself, of course, produces its own, strictures. You have to follow that, do it exactly right, and more. But the khayal singer has nothing. As we were saying, the notes of make in themselves, sa re ma pa ni sa, do not indicate anything. Even if you were to write down the notes of what is called the pakad, that is the form or the cluster of notes through which you might recognize a rag, even those notes, let's say, for gaur sarang, sa ga re ma ga pa re sa, pa ni sa re sa ni dha pa, or what, sa pa re sa. Let's say you write down a cluster of notes like that, it doesn't help or mean anything. It doesn't help in any way. The musician really, when he has to sit down to sing, or she, it's sa, ga, re, ma, ga, and what they're going to do with it today, and it's an extraordinary, unknown sort of a genre that courts the unknown. I'm not saying that this is why people from the educated and middle class shirked or shied away, because they are listeners of this music, they are patrons of the music, and they have been in the past. But definitely it is a difficult thing to be going into. I don't have any answer to this question as to why they haven't gone more into it, and as to whether institutions can produce, adequately forms of study of Hindustani classical music. I don't know. I mean, SRA, Sangeet Research Academy, has produced some good musicians, or has at least nurtured some good gurus in order to produce some good. That's the closest we have to an institution. But it's a field which traditionally is hyper emotional, very closed, suspicious, and very difficult to live in. Nobody in their right minds would want to live that kind of life interacting with other musicians, because everybody is in a state. You know, now it's even worse because it's ossified. The whole milieu is in a state of complete ossification. So now there is nothing much left beyond the production of singers, and also the pulling your ear when you say the name of a guru, or those kind of gestures.
I will like to draw the attention of you, both of you actually, that we have also different kinds of music, and some of the music it's ritualized, but they are music nonetheless. Like, for example, one of my friends said that he was at that time staying close to a village in Gujarat, and a young Bhil boy died, and his mother, for the next 1 or 2 weeks, every day sang a marasya, long marasya, for 2-3 hours.
Marasya.
Yeah, marasya bolo, na? Marasya. Okay. So, and that constituted basically of what she was talking to our son, the dead son. And it was an invocation to the son, and also simultaneously a request that in your next birth, one day she would take the case of the Brahmins, the next birth, do not be a Brahmin. And that day's marasya or marsya will constitute only of that why. If you are a Brahmin, you will be all the time wasting your time in ritual. You will have no time to look at the nature. You know, the time to look at the animals are around your forest and so on and so forth. And that will go on for 2-3 hours. What the Brahmin does and why he shouldn't he shouldn't take a Brahminic rebirth. And then next day, she will also come out with a baniya, and you will be counting. No, don't be born in a family of baniyas where you will be counting money all the time and cheating others and thinking of money and so. And every time, the end of the maras, every day, you say, you come back only as a Bhil. Only as a Bhil boy. It's actually it's a pathetic story, but this went on for about 10 years. And that was a different kind of music. That music was an invocation on some sense. That is not music for music. It is the marsya is in that sense, you can look at it not as only music, but also as a kind of a compensation for the loss of a son with whom you are dialoguing, because you are so convinced about his rebirth and that he's coming back and coming back close to you as a field boy, and that is a different kind of music. That is a different kind of music, but it is music nonetheless. And one wonders whether this one we have to classify music in that kind of way, different ways. One can think of many other situations where exactly this kind of thing happens, where music is a different kind of presence. For instance, if you are used to Satyajit Ray's movies, the music part of it is smaller than most Hindi movies. But Satyajit Ray uses music as a way of connecting the story. It is not a hero and heroine singing with an excellent composer, like an excellent, however good the music is, the record breaks all the records which is sold all over India. But it is nonetheless a very different kind of experience that you connect the story. It's connected. And similar things you find even in the Bengali Yatra, where the music is a thread. Greek chorus. Greek chorus is also that kind of a quasi music. It's a different. It's a frame. It frames actually the whole theatre, whole play. And that music is also very important because, in some sense, without that you cannot see the play and understand it. In Greek plays. So music has different roles to play. I would suggest that music, like probably sculpture and art, both are art, but these are two primeval arts. I am not saying primitive, I am saying primeval because it is pre-primitive. Because whereas the sculptural part of it, like for example even the things you find in the cave, done obviously with rock arts. That's a good example of that. But in music, that is not available to you, and therefore it had to wait till people discovered the idea of transferring music to other persons, so sharing music and people remembering the music. I will give you a more modern example of that. I am not a very devout church-going Christian, but when my father died, I went to the Baptist church where actually he was to go every Sunday. And this time I had a look at the book of songs which they sing between the rotation of the padre. So I found, just while seeing them, that the book of songs, technically it is a Christian book of hymns, but it starts from Ram Mohan Rai and goes on with other Brahmos and ends with a huge number, quite a large number, I can't put the quite a large number of songs by Rabindranath Tagore. And also other well-known Bengali writers. The interesting part of the story is this, that in all songs they have given the raga. And I must say that some of the compositions I could recognize. If somebody says something like this is something like Meg Malla instead of Meg, what you sang. One can understand that because that people sing and so forth. But there were so many of them mixed ragas which I have never heard anybody sing. And I doubt whether anybody has tried to do so. Because, and they were singing it. And not records. Because some of the elderly people have remembered it from the earlier things. They have seen it, this has become part of the hymn. Whether they are singing correctly or not, I do not know. But extremely odd mixtures of ragas, which nobody has probably heard of. It remains for somebody to really decode the hymn book. That whether these mixed ragas were actually sung you know, or known at that time as Misra, Thang at that time. So there is that part of the story too.
One of the, one of the, I started listening to music, seriously classical music, when I came to Delhi to do my MA. And there used to be Shankarlal Music Conference, and it was a very prestigious conference, and used to have very large number. And there was a time when 400 people, or odd number like that, 400 odd people would wait for Nazakat Ali, Salamat Ali at the airport. And they would be brought by almost in a procession to Sir Shankarlal Music Conference. And, they had their own gharana, which was called Sham Chaurasi Gharana, whatever they anyway. And Amir Khan, for instance, that started realizing that even in our classical music, there are perhaps two ways, if not more. One is inward looking. So Amir Khan came, and he was a very tall man, बहुत ही लहीम शहीम थे, टोपी ओपी लगाया, शेरवानी पहने हुए, बहुत ही, and he sang for 2.5 hours, including his famous Darbari Kanhada and all that. But he hardly opened his eyes. His eyes while singing. बीच-बीच में एक आध दो बार, जैसे आप भी बैठे तो कोई हर्ज नहीं, this kind of a, ठीक है. So there was this music which was music unto oneself. And there were the other musicians who were of course singing to the audience and this, that and that. So once I had an interesting experiment. Somebody asked Mallikarjun Mansoor in Bhopal कि पंडित जी जब आप गा रहे हो और सामने आपके ठीक वक्त पे ठीक मौके पे दाद देने वाला कोई बैठा हो तो इससे आपके गाने में कोई फर्क पड़ता है? अरे तो सब लोग थोड़े चौंके कि अच्छा कोई फर्क नहीं. अरे बोले ये तो मेरा झंडा आजकल इन लोगों ने उठा दिया, आप लोगों ने ना, तो लोग आने लगे. मैंने तो खेड़े देहात में भी गाया है, मेरा नाम अनाउंस होता था हॉल खाली. तो मेरा काम है गाना, उसका काम है सुनना. सुने तो ठीक है, नहीं सुने तो क्या होता. उसी में किसी ने मल्लिकार्जुन मंसूर से पूछा कि पंडित जी आपका बुर्जी खां, वो बुर्जी खां साहब से सीखे थे, अल्लाह दिया के बेटे. तो बुर्जी खां साहब कहने देखो ऐसा है, एक बार मैं गा रहा था पुणे में. अच्छा पुणे में बहुत ही पुणे दी कल्चरल कैपिटल ऑफ हिंदुस्तानी क्लासिकल म्यूजिक. मतलब वहाँ जितने जानकार लोग हैं, खडूस भी हैं बहुत, दे रिजेक्ट यू लाइक हेल. तो उसमें पुणे में गा रहे थे, तो उन्होंने एक तान लगाई, तो एक साहब सामने बैठे तो खड़े हो गए. उन्होंने कहा कि बुर्जी खां साहब तो ये तान ऐसे नहीं लगाते थे. तो मनकाल में बसा मैं बताता हूँ कि बुर्जी खां साहब ये तान कैसे लगाते थे, लगाए. Which was slightly different from his rendition. He said, मैं बुर्जी खां साहब का शिष्य हूँ, उनका स्टेनोग्राफर नहीं हूँ. Wherein there was a very interesting concept being given. The second thing was, we interviewed Kumar Gandhar way back in 74 or something. तो उन्होंने कहा जो आपने which you said that कहने मैं तो सबसे मरण धर्मा कला का साधक हूँ. मैं तो गाते गाते रोज मरता हूँ. जो तिलक कामोद जिस कुमार गंधर्व ने गाया वो तिलक कामोद गया, वो कुमार गंधर्व गए, और फिर वो अपने बारे में थर्ड पर्सन की तरफ भी बोलते थे. लेकिन फिर कुमार जी गाएंगे, शायद कुमार तिलक कामोद गाएंगे, लेकिन वो कुछ दूसरा तिलक कामोद होगा. So he was, I think, what we were suggesting was that there was no fixed meaning. कहते तो राग तो नंगा है, कपड़े तो हम पहनाते हैं. There is no fixed meaning to a rag. Rag provides you an opportunity for your creativity and imagination. in spite of all the limitations that one can think, it is a kind of a, you have been provided a space. The space is defined. That this is this, this is this. Well, within that, what you are able to do with your creativity and imagination, which is called innovativeness and whatever. वो कहते थे राग दरबारी है, राग गुरु गंभीर राग है, और सब लोग लंबो चेहरा बना के गाते हैं. मैं बंदिश गाता हूँ, नाचने लगोगे. So, in other words, there is no fixed meaning. I think this is very important, that in spite of the rigidity of the classical, there is within the classical, at least our Hindustani classical, the full freedom for you to create a meaning which is distinct to you. And it's a meaning which is uniquely created by you. It is not a meaning which is already given and which you are only approximating by performing or whatever. So it's a I think a deeper level, there is an articulation involved which...
No, go ahead. No,
So I sort of... आमिर खान साहब ने भी एक बार कहा कि भाई वो एडमंड हिलैरी एक बार एवरेस्ट चढ़ गया, अब जिंदगी भर उसी का जश्न लूट रहा है. अब मैं तो रोज पहाड़ पे चढ़ता हूँ, बिना पहाड़ पे चढ़े हम गा ही नहीं सकते, तो हम तो रोज पहाड़ पे चढ़ते, हमको तो कोई इसका हमारी शौहरत से इसका कोई ताल्लुक नहीं. So you know, they had a sense of the what one would say, a sense of the world. I mean, I don't think the classical music is away from the world. It has a sense of the world, but it also has the sense of creating a world of itself, which is not about the world as we know, but it draws you into that world, which is being created by him or her. आपने जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस की बात कही थी, आई थॉट कि बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी में ओंकारनाथ ठाकुर, तो एन राजम फॉर इंस्टेंस, she was a student of BHU and she became a performer other than Prabha Atre.
But she was she put a Ganga
No, I mean, you see, whenever an attempt, you see, you have more than 100 years of so-called modern education in music. There were the Gandhar Mahavidyalaya, Lahore mein sabse pehle shuru hua and things of that kind. Most of them have failed to produce performers. I mean, they have, and you said kindly and rather generously that they must have produced musicologists and music critics. They haven't. I mean, there's not a single musicologist I can think of who has been in these institutions. I mean, imagine the people who have written about music, and none of them is a product of a music college or a music department of the university, as far as I know. The second is that, however, whenever they try to marry the Guru Shishya Parampara with the modern, which is what SRA did, which is what we did in Drupad Kendra in Bhopal. So the first products were Uday Bhavalkar and the Gunjeta brothers. We brought Zia Moinuddin Dagar, Zia Fariduddin Dagar to teach. There were only 5 students, each one being given a scholarship, etc. So whenever you have done that in SRA, you have done it, so it has worked. But whether you have this modern system, I mean, they neither know theory, nor they can practice well.
May I add something?
Yeah.
I mean, if these institutions of music had been idiosyncratic enough, then maybe they could have been a home for visual artists.
Yeah.
I mean, all I'm saying is that it's in the 60s in Britain, it was the art schools which were homes for musicians. You know, so one has to sort of, I suppose, approach, study institutional space and what you want to do opportunistically and idiosyncratically. And there hasn't been enough of that idiosyncrasy in relationship to institutions.
Yeah.
I mean, Indians think that if I'm in an institution, then I must get that MA and that PhD. And then I have to, teach or get a job.
Yeah.
And there has been a huge sort of adherence to this almost religious view that institutions are meant for, you go there and you complete something. So I don't know whether there are institutions which have been used for other purposes. Ostensibly meant for a degree, but have been used for other purposes. I don't know about FTII, whether it was a host to some sort of idiosyncratic activity, maybe film related, but over and above what these people are supposed to do in terms of studying for a director's degree. But on the whole, people have been extremely obedient in India to the idea that if I've signed up to do this degree, I must finish it.
Yeah.
So that is not a good position to be in when you are trying to approach what is essentially an experimental way of thinking, which is khayal or Hindustani classical music or the rag.
Yeah.
Right from the start, it has been an experiment.
Yeah. That's
So let us presume that Bharat is one of the first people, whenever 2nd century BC or whatever, who comes up with that 7-note scale, sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa. I mean, he's the first person we know of. We presume that it was there, and he noted it down, and he gave this kind of account of what sa, where sa comes from, where re comes from, etc., etc. And it's one of the earliest records, if not the earliest, of that 7-note scale. The 7-note scale then is a wonderful ordering of how the notes that we know go up and down. But the rag is not that. So the rag is already, let's say it emerges in the 6th century with Matanga. So it is, then I'm presuming it is there as a thought. It is already present by the 6th century as a way of thinking of this, of going beyond this Bharat scale. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa. So already there is a way of thinking that's been created that is experimental, because till today no one can say what a rag is. Because of this strange aberration, because of its definition by what it is not. I am not a scale that goes up and down. That's the first thing they'll say, not a scale. Then you have to sing and show in what way the progression from sa to sa and then down again, which is a different route. Because the way down does not follow necessarily the notes that go, that you sing on the way up. So it's not even like, I have avoided these notes on the way up and I avoid the same notes on the way down. Not true. So it is a form of experimental thinking to do with progression. And in our country, there has been right from for a very long time an avant-garde. People who are not thinking in the way the people around them are thinking. We make a mistake of thinking that this is representative of Indian thought. Obviously it isn't, because no one in India knows what a rag is. And very few people can understand what a rag is, or this radical experiment with the rag, khayal, what khayal is. When people, when they become singing like that, then they think this is classical music, let's go somewhere else. We don't understand what is going on over here. This is because Amir Khan, people like that, began to slow down the khayal so much and slow down the rag. The rag anyway is, for me, I would think, what is a rag? The rag is a slowed up melody. The melodies are there. I name one Megh, or I call one Purvi. The melodies are there. I've heard it, so that the journey is going like this, as far as I'm concerned. Or the apocryphal tale about Amir Khusro. A Yemeni merchant came to the court and he was humming a tune. Khusro heard it and he noted it and he turned it into a rag, which is called Yaman. Now, whether or not this is true is not the issue over here. What is important is a particular way of thinking. Okay. So then people over here now, in this day and age, there has been additions in the Wikipedia entry for rags and Rag Yaman. So somebody is saying, how can they say this true Indian rag is from Yemen? There is no such rag in Yemen. Of course there is no such rag in Yemen, because the rag is a particular way of thinking which is not there in Yemen. Then the notes and the tune can come from anywhere. It can come from Timbuktu, it can come from Patna, it can come from Yemen. But the way of thinking is a particular thought process of an avant-garde who have explored these things more and more and more. So, so for me it seems that the journey is going in this way, that you get a tune, you note a tune, and our composers, including Tagore, they're all hoarders of tunes. They don't believe that, you know, like Beethoven, I have to compose symphonies or sonatas. I'm not even sure if Beethoven believed that. That is the Western way of thinking about these things. They hoard tunes and they reuse them. You know, R.D. Burman used to do the same, I think. Many of the Hindi film, composers used to do this, and that is very much in keeping with a particular avant-garde way of thinking about what, you know, this is music. What do I do with it? You know, so so you take a tune, let's say it's a Yemeni melody, and then you begin to investigate it. You begin to slow it down. Once you slow it down, you notice things in it. For instance, you notice that in the way he was singing the tune, he did not go sarega, he went ni rega. Ni rega. So he missed the sa. Only when you slow down that tune that the Yemeni merchant was singing, you notice that he never sang sarega, he sang ni rega. So that becomes a particular pillar for Yaman and the exposition of Yaman, that how long can I, as I start singing this rag, avoid the sa and go from ni to re and back again to ni, and then come to sa. How long do I play with this and then go to ni re ga, and then there are certain kind of things which have been revealed, Ashok, upon the tune being slowed down. When we sing the tune, we do not understand the significance of these gaps or these elisions, that what is being avoided. But when we slow down the tune, then the improviser, the thinker, thinks, I can do a lot with this, you know. So this is what is happening over here with the rag. And then after that, then we have another stage in which that rag then becomes the basis of a composition, a bandish in that rag. So a tune, slowed down, opened up, and then a bandish based upon that rag. This slowed down tune is rag. Khayal is further slowing down, which is why nobody understands. I mean, most people think that this is classical music. It doesn't sound like music at all. That is because we are not used to songs being slowed down like that, being made unrecognizable. So this kind of tendency we began to see in Europe in art with the modernists, with the impressionists and the post-impressionists, that they began to suddenly paint things which you could not recognize as what they were supposed to be. They had been disintegrated. There is a huge long line of the rich imaginative possibilities of slowing down, disintegration, evasion in our country. So these people are thinkers, you know. That no wonder they are saying these interesting things. Kumar Gandharva, they are all thinkers. They are part of a thinking tradition which expresses itself through these things and anecdotally. I'm not talking about those anecdotes that Bade Gulama bahut mutton curry bahut acha banate the. I'm not talking about that one.
They talk specifically about music.
When they talk about music, then they come up with some very interesting things. They don't only pull their ears at their guru's name, you know, because it is a tradition in opposition to so much, you know, and that opposition is opening up so many possibilities. So they are part of a thinking tradition. That tradition of thought, it was there in the air, I would say, so that we could be imaginative, cultural and secular without having gone to university. Coming back to the idea of institutions, we didn't need to go to university, not because we had access to the wisdom of the East, but because there were anomalous traditions around us. You know, the khayal is one such, rag is one such anomalous tradition. So people had access to these things. Now they don't have access. Not just musicians, people do not have access. So obviously they cheer when some new temple comes up. You know, because all these critical traditions which have been here for millennia and which we had access to until not long ago have suddenly been taken from us. People like Amir Khan, you know, why are they contemporaries with these, modernists in Europe and doing more or less the same thing without having read the same books that they have? It's because of these critical traditions that they have access to over here. A very important resource, which I fear now this intellectual resource is no longer available in the way it used to be. So everything then will reach a point of ossification, including the way we talk about music. So that is what has happened now, I think.
May I introduce a slightly different part of the story? How do you reconcile the culture of music with the music? It's a very peculiar question. For example, Dhupar has a very different history and different lineages there. And strangely enough, though people trace it to the Vedas and their recitations and so on and so forth, but I notice that even now, the majority of the Dhupar Gharanas are Islamic. And they are proudly so. And I would like to particularly mention this because this cultural twist is important. Bahauddin Dagar was telling me, the one who plays Rudra Veena, he says that his father was dying. He called him to his bedside and said, देखो तुम रुद्र वीणा बजाते हो तो दिन में 5 बार नमाज पढ़ना, पर मस्जिद में मत जाना, क्योंकि उन्होंने बोलेंगे आपको कि रुद्र वीणा शिव जी की है, ये नहीं चलेगा। रुद्र वीणा शिव जी का हो तो तुम शिव पूजा चालू रखो, तो तुम उधर मस्जिद में भी जाओगे शिव पूजा भी करोगे, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है। तो मस्जिद में मत जाना, 5 बार नमाज पढ़ना, पर ये रुद्र वीणा पूजा पे करो, रुद्र वीणा पूजा करो, शिव जी का है। Now that is a very different concept. That very different concept of culture of music. And I think it has a lesson for us. That I found out lines of Amar Khusro's poetry where he says, "Bhala hua tumhe मेरी मटकी टूटी, मैं तो पानी भरन से छूट गई." And taken step from the bhakti movement also. Step. They are not embarrassed by that. But we will be embarrassed often, or many in India today will feel embarrassed to know that. That is the origin. There is this other part of the story. And like for example, Alauddin Khan himself always went to the temple in my house after him. Everything. That was his routine. So there is this part of the story. So it is music in India is culturally free of religious divisions. And you can see it even from the fact That once I remember going to listen to this violinist, Onkana student, we just mentioned, and his daughter. And it was a concert right close next to it, you know, at WH. And I found Nandy was there living. And it was the day of Muharram, and they called the concert. And Nandy was furious that Muharram के दिन हम नहीं गाते. मुहर्रम के दिन क्यों होगा? कभी हिंदुस्तान में नहीं हुआ कि मुहर्रम के दिन आप गाना गाएंगे, कि वायलिन बजाएंगे, कुछ सितार बजाएंगे. ये क्या हो रहा है? I was very touched by her comment, and there's something there. There's a different concept of culture, different concept of the divine, and different concept of how you should handle what is the meaning you will ascribe to your music. Only yesterday, somebody said that in Pakistan, because most of the Sikhs have migrated away, so there are some of the Gurudwaras are still there, and Sikhs take care of that. Small number of them. But 180 Gurudwaras, they have no support. So only this lady was telling me that he found out that the people went out to ask the neighborhood, all Muslims around the Gurudwara. कि भाई ये गुरुद्वारा में सब टूटने लगा है, ये तो इनको कुछ करना चाहिए. The money for the restitution of these 180 gurudwaras were collected in a one big. Also all Muslims. Muslim in Pakistan. Yeah? So there is this other part of the story, which Indian music is probably the fantastic example of that. And we should not forget that part of the story. So that's not a bad way of ending it.
Well, absolutely. I just wanted to add that these anomalous traditions that I'm talking about, going straight back, Ashis mentioned the word Vedas. The moment we think about Vedas, you know, our eyes glaze over, and we have an abstract sort of idea. We think of some Brahmin chanting. We have gone back in history. It is part of our, the costume drama idea of India, Vedas. Has got lost the actual sort of anomalous nature of the Upanishads, which was an important text for all the cultures. Not because of it contained with the wisdom of the East, but because of its anomalousness. For anybody who wanted to think differently from the way we were being told, or people were being told to conduct thought processes, you have the Upanishads. It's not a holy text which tells you how to behave well. If anything, the opposite. So, if anybody lives their life according to these texts, Upanishad, the Gita, whatever, I mean, it would be a perplexing sort of life and existence that they are advocating. Perplexing concepts. So these concepts have, I've only mentioned these two texts because we are thinking about deeply colonial ideas of what India was, you know. So, I mean, I don't think that this is the way it actually worked in terms of the people who access them and why. Because as far as the, what one might call a Brahminical or an Orientalist access to these texts, I think they don't understand those texts. Whether it's a Brahmin or an Orientalist, or most of us, I don't think that they have any interest in those texts. I don't think the people who are talking about these texts nowadays, including, let us say, Sushma Swaraj, had said you must read the Gita every day. But if she had read the Gita, she would not be saying this. Because the Gita has said, by reading the Vedas, you're not going to get anywhere. You know, so it's only if you don't know these texts. But I think these people who also translated them into Persian, there were, you know, there's a whole kind of the intellectual history. We have not written this intellectual history. The intellectual history comprises very interesting movements of these rather idiosyncratic and anomalous ways of thinking, and then that moves in towards poets like Janabai, Tukaram, Kabir, Sufism, and from where khayal will come. You know, these are all anomalous ways of thinking. Those texts do not give anything which is safe and sacred. They are secular texts. I see the music as a secular music. I see Hindustani classical music. I don't know enough about Carnatic music to make a comment. And various musical lineages, but since we are concentrating on Hindustani classical music, the rag, I see these as secular concepts. People often misunderstand them to be religious, especially outside of India. They are not. I mean, the more we think about what comprises secular life in India, the more we'll find an intellectual history. You know, in what we usually call, say, a religious text. These are not religious texts. I don't think they even have a god in them. You know, the Upanishads talks about Brahman. I've still not seen a picture of Brahman. People confuse Brahman with Brahma. And you know, and for Brahma there are lots of pictures of a person with a beard, the way God should look. But Brahman is a concept. So there is a misunderstanding going on right from Ram Mohan Roy and you know, his Unitarianism, which we should not take too much at face value. Is what I'm saying.
You see, these people who are now propagating Hindu culture, etc., never refer to any of the foundational texts of Hindu thought. Never.
And Ashok, these foundational texts, if you look at them, they are arguing with somebody. So before them, there were other foundational texts. How can we call them foundational texts? At every moment they're arguing with some people who are saying they are wrong. You know, this is half the text is full of argumentation. So there cannot be a foundational text. It is a critical text.
So what I'm saying, foundational in the sense that they constituted what Hindu thought.
We think. Now we think of them.
But otherwise, they will never.
No, I was just saying that of the 6 Saradarshan, 3 of them are atheistic.
Yes. Exactly.
I mean, where else you would have whole religions which have no concept of God? Buddhism and Jainism. And these are, it only can happen where...
Also, Brahman is, I do not think is God in any Judeo-Christian sense at all.
That's true. I mean, that's completely true. So, friends, we now come to an end, and I do hope that this was an interesting session to which we have talked through. You see, you can never talk about something without referring to something else. That's the beauty of thinking anyway, that you, while you are thinking of music, you have thought of many other things and brought it. So I think it was a very enriching contribution, discussion. So thanks, Amit, for singing and talking, and to Ashis for bringing these other stories onto the table. Thank you very much. Was it T.S. Eliot who said, "Thou art the music while the music lasts."